Welcome everybody to Beyond the Ether podcast. This is your boy Dino, aka your Solid Five. I have a special guest this week, Daniel.janks. Welcome.
Hey, thanks very much, David. Thanks for having me.
Um, so what I like to do at the start is kind of just go back in time, like a little flashback sequence.
Mhm.
Um, so what you're from South Africa, correct?
Yeah, yeah,
Yeah.
I'm South African born and bred.
And so what was it like growing up for you? Like what was your come up about?
Um, I grew up in the apartheid South Africa, which was which was weird. My family were very sort of aware of the struggle and quite involved in it in some ways. So, we lived a very privileged, lucky life as
Hmm.
white South Africans. My dad was an attorney. My mom was an academic, a lecturer at Wits University. Um, but I was always very made aware of, that there were other people living other kinds of lives, um, and things were going on around us, and we were, educated and all that sort of stuff. And the high school I went to was a very sort of forward-thinking liberal high school, so it was very interesting growing up in South Africa in the 80s and 90s, because there was a lot going on. It was a scary
Yeah.
time. Uh, but as a kid, I didn't really know any different, and it was cool. It was fun. Yeah.
Hmm. Yeah, I talked to somebody else last time and they were talking about that period and how just kind of weird it was, you know? And then at that time, did you was it mandatory like serving time and or at least there was in South Africa? Did you have to go in for like military or
Yeah, so
some
there
kind of
was
thing?
conscription. Like the whole time I was growing up, there was conscription. And everyone was pretty scared of it because we had an active war in Angola, on the border of Angola, which guys were getting sent to, and horrific stories and experiences that came out of that. And then later on, even after that stopped, when there was violence in the townships and with the apartheid movement, a lot of sort of students and youth movements out of the townships. There was a lot of rioting, there were a lot of protests, and not only the police, but sometimes they would send in the military as well. So even the guys who sort of missed the war, they ended up, getting sent into just horrible situations. But I was very
Mm.
lucky. The conscription ended. I was born 77. So the conscription ended. I have an older brother, he's 3 years older than me. He actually got his sign up papers. Um, but my mom sort of, through her contacts, there were sort of various different ways that you could try and get out of the army. And I think the first step was you'd get the papers and you throw them away. And if they knock on your door and say, why did we didn't get your papers? Why didn't you send your papers in? Then you just say, oh, I'm sorry, I sent them. You must not have got them. Give me some more and I'll fill them in and I'll send them in again. And you'd sort of do that as many times as you could until somebody got really upset, and then
Yeah.
something else would have to happen. So that's what she did with my brother's first set of papers. But nobody ever knocked on the door, and right after that, conscription ended. So
Mm.
no, I've never done any military service, and I'm very grateful for that because it's a politically it's a really really tough thing in South Africa in those days, in terms of,
Yeah.
you weren't necessarily defending your country, you were sort of defending the apartheid regime, and that, I don't think that was fun for anyone.
I had a friend in Norway that had to do that. Right because I knew him in high school, but he had to do it. Actually, no, I think he had to do it when he got back. I think that was the deal. Because he wasn't quite 18 yet, but he was about to be. So
Right.
yeah, he had a because they're still doing that. I don't know the extent of like how extreme it is or whatever it is. It could have just been like training and stuff like that. But I was
Yeah, I
always
mean, Norway,
interested
I mean,
in.
I know a bit about the military around the world. Norway's got some actually interesting sort of special forces troops, and they're very active in sort of UN peacekeeping missions, but I'm not sure they've had their own sort of active war for a very long time.
And growing up, were you a theater kid? Were you into theater?
Yeah, sort of theater drama as a subject in schools wasn't big. Um, theater actually, I don't know why I keep talking about apartheid. It's not, not, not what I thought we'd be talking about. But struggle, what we call struggle theater, played quite a big role in the apartheid, anti-apartheid movement. There were lots of laws about who could and couldn't be on theater stages
Hmm.
based on race. Um, and a lot of the sort of protest messaging that people were putting out was done sort of through the medium of theater, which was amazing. And as I say, because my parents were quite involved in all of that, we knew a lot of these theater makers, and we'd go and see a lot of this theater. Um, so yeah, so I did sort of go and watch a lot of theater, school plays and stuff, but it wasn't really a big thing. And then when I went to high school, this very sort of weird lefty high school, they actually offered drama as a subject. So I was
Hmm.
able to take it from then and yeah, from there all the way through. So definitely um, from an early age.
And so you were just like in it for in high school, but not like anything after that, or
No, so I went, so high school I did drama. It was, pretty much my best subject, favorite subject. And then out of high school, I took a sort of a gap year and did some stuff, and then straight to drama school. I went
okay.
to one of our big universities, Wits University, University of the Witwatersrand, if you want the full title. And they had a drama school, and my mom taught there.
Hmm.
So yeah, I did a 4-year honors degree at drama school, and then a professional actor.
It's a floor running, huh? Perfect.
Yeah,
Did
yeah.
you have any horror stories from any of the theater experience that you had?
Um, I mean, I've got horror stories from my sort of later theater experience.
Okay.
The industry here is weird. It's a weird industry. It's very hard for a lot of people to relate to who come from sort of more first world areas and industries in this field. So theater here, there's so little money in it. We don't have a huge
Yeah.
theater going audience, so it's really hard to make money out of a theater production. And because of that, very few people are putting money into theater productions. So,
Right.
I mean, if you were like a theater actor, if that's all you did, you couldn't make a living. You couldn't make a living with no wage in this country. Um, I'll give you an example. Earlier this year, I was offered a role in an Agatha Christie play in one of our big theaters. And if I do the conversion, I was offered maybe $250, $300 a week. Um,
Jeez.
yeah, and that's pretty standard. And that's the low end of standard, but that's like I wasn't like, oh God, what are you doing? No, that's sort of the big musicals and stuff. We do have a couple of big theaters, and they do sort of the big Broadway and Hollywood, Broadway and West End musicals, and those can make some money, and those performers make a little bit more money. But it's I'm very active in the South African Guild of Actors here. We're trying desperately to sort of protect the rights of actors and stuff, but it's kind of the Wild West out here at the moment. Yeah. So I mean, my horror stories, yeah, from theater. And I feel for theater owners and theater producers because they're not making any money, and
Yeah.
so it's hard for them to put money into the things that I would expect to be very normal in a theater. Um, and after years and years and years of that, the norms change. Suddenly, what was normal is now what was unthinkable 10 years ago. Slowly over time has become normal and just sort of keeps getting lower and lower and lower. Yeah.
Straight after drama school, you started getting into acting. What was your first big gig out of school?
So one of the cool things about our drama school is that the Wits Drama School at least, it had a big theatre complex, the Wits Theatre, and that had a big main stage and a couple of smaller sort of little venues, and those were treated as professional productions. They were open to the public, tickets were sold, critics would come in and have a look at it and post reviews sort of in the papers and stuff. So it was very much an exposure to us of what the real world was like. And so when I was in second year varsity, we did a play. It was one of the fourth year students directing projects, and it was a very good play. It was great. It was um, a British piece called Bouncers by God, maybe John Godber.
Mm.
Sorry, that may be wrong. Um, and we were offered to take that play actually to one of the professional theaters, the Civic Theatre here then. So that was my first real professional job while I was still in
Okay.
second year varsity. And through that, I got an agent. So, I mean, I had an agent here, um, when I was sort of in second year varsity and through third year and fourth year, didn't do much professional work. You were allowed to, but it was kind of frowned upon because everybody wants to do the professional, glamorous stuff. And so it sort of really distracted people from the drama course. Um, but I was lucky enough then to keep that agent all the way through until sort of out of drama school. And then, small roles in films and small roles in movies, films, local television. The first big job I got coming out of drama school, I say big job, everything's relative. It was a school's Shakespeare sort of festival at one of our big theaters. We put on Macbeth and Julius Caesar.
Wow.
But it was a big scale. It was, we had full cast and it was on a big stage with a revolve and all those sorts of things. And they would truck the school kids in their thousands, and we would just pump those two shows out. And that was cool. That was really nice. As a sort of a first big professional job, it was great. Um, and then I suppose the thing that surprised me, and I don't know if it's a South African industry thing or an international industry thing or just a me thing, but
Mm.
my vision had always been, my plan was go out, do good work, and try and leave every set or every job with somebody thinking, hey, that Daniel, he's pretty cool. I'd be happy to work with him again. And if you manage to do that, momentum would sort of catch on, and it would sort of, just keep rolling. Um, but momentum is tough in this industry to
Yeah.
get. Maybe easier in this industry than overseas. The big thing was guys in South Africa would always you'd build your career and then you'd get to a point where you were no longer fulfilled. You were getting the good roles, you were getting the big roles, but local stuff is very low budget and not particularly rewarding in many ways. And if you got international work, because we do make a lot of international film and TV stuff here,
Right.
then you were third tree to the left or soldier number 94 or whatever
Yeah.
it
Yeah.
is. So the guys felt like they hit a ceiling, and so they'd try and jump the pond. They would go to LA or London or wherever people went. Um, and you suddenly went from that big fish in a small pond to a very, very,
Yeah.
very small fish in a very big sea. Um,
Plankton.
so yeah, and guys go there quite hopeful because if I were to show someone in LA, for instance, my CV, guys, eyes open up because, as I say, we have access to amazing international work that comes here, and we get to work with amazing, quite high profile people. I've worked with some pretty amazing people. Um, and yeah, you're soldier number nine, or you've just done one scene with them, but on the CV, it looks really impressive, and it's stuff that I think guys in LA and overseas um, they don't really get access to that because
Right.
they are a very small fish in a big pond, and if there's a walk on a movie with I don't know Tom Cruise, then there's thousands and thousands and thousands of people who want that role, even if it's a 45-year-old white Jewish male. If that's the brief, bang, there are still thousands of people who are
Yeah.
auditioning for that. If Tom Cruise brings a movie to South Africa and he needs to fill that one little walk on, then I'm fighting, I don't know, 20, 10, 20 people for that role who can fit that brief. So that's what I mean by access. We have access
Yeah.
to some really amazing stuff. And it makes our CVs look great. So the guys jump, and sort of agents, managers are quite impressed by their CVs, and they sign agents and managers, and they think that CV then counts for something beyond that, right? That they're already entering a couple of strungs up the ladder. Strungs? What is a strung? A couple of rungs up the ladder. But that's when the fantasy kind of crumbles because you enter right at the bottom, just like everyone else. And
Yeah.
it's easier to get representation, but from then on, yeah, you're stuffed. And guys have gone, and a couple of guys have sort of become working, jobbing actors,
Mhm.
um, but very few. Yeah, it's tough.
Well, just that the industry you're in is just tough in general. I mean, all the time, right? I mean, it doesn't matter if you're well experienced or not.
Yeah, it's pretty. I don't think I've ever been on a job where I haven't at some point sort of looked around me at what's going on and all these people who are running around doing these things, and there's 10, 15, 100, 500 people around you kind of running around doing this very important thing.
Yeah.
Um, and sort of thought to myself, this is a really fucking weird way to make a living. Like, it's just weird. Like, some guy had an idea and wrote words on a page, and now there's 500 people running
Yeah.
around like this is the most important thing in the world. It's magical. It's amazing,
Yeah.
but it's weird.
I know. I know nothing about the business really. I mean, I get to talk to you guys every now and then, people in the industry, but I've never been on a set, never been, the only thing I've done is
Oh,
like
you got to go there. You got to spend some time out there. It's fascinating. It is
I want
really,
to. It just hasn't happened. Yeah.
yeah, sure, sure. It's amazing. I mean, it's the greatest job in the world. It's fucking magic. Talking about some of the early jobs I did, the first really big job that I worked on is Michael Mann when he was making Ali with Will Smith.
Yeah. I was gonna ask you
There's
about
the
that. Yeah.
rumble in the jungle when Will Smith goes to some African country to fight the fight
Right.
in that city. And so Michael Mann came here to shoot it. And it actually shot in Mozambique, which is a country just to the north of us.
Mm.
But it was, the whole thing was produced out of South Africa because we have the infrastructure and the expertise and that sort of thing. So yeah, I got an audition to go and to audition for this role. CIA Man One, I think, is what it is called to this day. But it had a couple of lines. I did the audition. I didn't hear anything, and then one night I get a call from my agent. I'm 21, 22. This was easily 20 years ago, and my agent says you got to fly to Mozambique tomorrow. Um, Michael Mann is interested in you for this role, but he's also interested in another guy. So that they're flying the two of you up to Maputo, and you'll meet with Michael Mann, and you'll both audition for him, and then he'll make a decision.
Mm.
Look at man, this is insane. It's finally happened. This is it. I'm gonna make the jump. He's gonna see me, and I'm gonna be in Lost in the Mohicans too. Um, so we fly out early the next morning. I meet the other guy, Ian, who's also auditioning. A great guy, I know him to this day. And we go out there, we fly to Maputo, early morning flight. We get picked up at the airport, we get taken to the production offices, and we sit there and we wait. And
Yeah.
we've had the discussions like, this is fucking Michael Mann, and this is going to be unbelievable. I can't believe this is, our brains are exploding. Wonder if we'll see Will Smith, like, blah, 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 we wait for about 3, 4 hours
Mm.
in this building. The stuff, it's a production office. It was an empty building 2 weeks ago, and now it's been invaded and taken over and turned into this headquarters. Eventually, we hear like these voices murmuring. You can feel like this energy in the building change. And eventually, Michael and his entourage arrive. They've been scouting locations, and they arrive and we know he's in the building.
Right.
But we still sit and wait for an hour or so. And the South African casting director, Krista Schamberger, who I've worked with a lot, and she's incredible. She's won an Emmy and all sorts of things.
Wow.
She eventually comes to us and says, "Okay, so Michael's here, and he's going to see you. He'll call you in one at a time. He'll read the scene with you, and then we'll see what's what." Cool. Can't actually remember who goes in first, Ian or me, but Ian goes in, comes back. I go in, meet with Michael Mann. He's in this big room with an office. He's quite distracted. He's got a lot of he's making a
Yeah.
multi-million-dollar movie. He's got a lot on his mind. But then he sort of focuses on me. We read through the lines. It's a very, I'll call it a nothing scene. Nothing's happening. I'm listening. The CIA guy is listening on a phone tap. He's listening to Malcolm X on a phone tap. And
Mm.
then his partner comes in and they just have it. And then he just eats lunch, these samosas. He just tucks it. He's starving, so he tucks it to samosas. Anyway, we both audition. We wait for a while, and Krista comes back in and she says, um, Michael has decided to go to the American embassy and see if there's anyone there that he can
Oh,
cast.
wow.
Feels that you're both too young.
Oh, jeez.
Now, Ian is a good 10 years older than me. So at that time, I'm 20, 21. Ian's in his
Okay.
30s, somewhere around there. But we're both thinking like if we're shit actors, that's one thing, or if our accents aren't good enough, that's another thing. But the one thing you could have seen from our audition tapes is sort of how old we play.
Yeah.
Anyway, we laugh about it. It's very disappointing, but we're laughing about it. We decide, fuck it, we'll take our per diem and we'll go for a nice dinner. And there's a famous prawn restaurant there in the city, and we go there. We're having dinner. And literally in the middle of dinner, this car like screeches to a stop outside the restaurant. And Krista, the casting director, jumps out and she runs up to our table and she sticks her hand out to me and she says, Congratulations, Mr. CIA man.
Oh,
And
wow.
Michael hadn't found anybody he liked at the embassy. And so, as per logic would have it, he'd cast the younger of the two people that he thought wasn't old enough. And so I got the next day, I got to go and shoot with Michael Mann for the day. And coming back to your story, they shot that scene for the entire day. Um, and I think it occupies about 18 seconds of the movie.
Wow.
Yeah.
But that's such a grand scale of like movie making though. I mean, that's, there's so many like
I
different
mean,
things happening and
there's so many stories from that day, but his attention to detail and
yeah,
his absolute fixation on getting what he sort of considered perfection was incredible to watch. His focus and his he would not settle for anything less than perfect.
right.
For 18 seconds of a movie that could very easily have been imperfect and not really made any difference to the movie. But I guess that's what makes him Michael Mann.
That's a pretty wild story though, because I mean, like for what you're telling me, you're just like, yeah, I got called for an audition. I had to fly to another country for a 50-50 chance of me, or even a less of a chance for me to get a role that ended up only being like, in an 18-second or, amount of time. And then he said, maybe. And then, I had to wait around for a while, eat dinner, and all of a sudden the car just speeds up and just almost crashes. And, it's just a wild, like,
Yeah, it was a great story. It was a great experience. I don't
yeah,
know if you've ever heard of or heard the podcast Dead Eyes.
no. No.
If you haven't, you should check it out. It's incredible. One of my favorite podcasts, and it's about a guy, a young American actor had been to drama school in England and was sort of living there just after drama school, and he gets cast in Band of Brothers, which was shooting in
Mm.
England at the time, and they were looking at American guys there in England, and he gets this little role in one scene, but he's really excited. It's the episode that Tom Hanks is directing, so I'll get to work with
Okay.
Tom Hanks, obviously all these other amazing actors, and it's a big deal, the production. And he gets the role. He goes to his wardrobe fitting. Everything's sort of sorted out. And the next day, he's supposed to shoot the next day, and his agent phones him and says, "There's a problem. Tom Hanks has seen your audition, and he thinks you have dead eyes. So he wants you to come to base camp and re-audition for him personally." I mean, what a fucking terrible thing for a young actor to have to deal with,
Yeah.
right? Dead eyes. How do I not have dead eyes in the audition?
I
What am I
want you
going
to
to do?
look less dead. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. Such a weird note. Anyway, but he does. He gets driven out there, and it's a very similar story to mine in some ways.
Right.
He ends up sitting around for hours, and then he hears the hubbub in the office as sort of Tom Hanks sort of arrives, and eventually is called into Tom Hanks, and he auditions for him. And Tom says, "Thanks very much." And he leaves and he goes and sits and waits. And then they come out and they say, "I'm really sorry. They've decided to go a different way." And he gets recast.
Wow.
And it really breaks his confidence. He doesn't do film or theater or TV. He doesn't do film or TV for like 20 years.
Wow.
Becomes a very respected improv actor in LA. Um, and this is now like 20 years later. He wants to unpack this. It's almost like like a bit of a piss take of these true crime podcasts. He wants to find out what happened. And it's an incredible podcast. And in every time he interviews an actor or a director or anyone in the industry, he asks them, "Have you got a Dead Eyes story?" And everyone does.
Oh yeah,
Everyone's got a story of these incredible things that happen. Um, it's such a small moment in Tom Hanks's day, right?
right.
Is this actor the guy? I've got five other actors waiting to do it. Is this the guy? I don't think he's the guy. Okay, cool. He's not the guy. But for that guy, it's insane. Yeah.
It's
So
20 years of you know,
yeah,
like
yeah,
weighing
yeah,
on
yeah.
him. Yeah.
Yeah. And I mean, the podcast is, it was one of the Apple podcasts of the year and it had three seasons. And the last episode is this guy sitting down with Tom Hanks
Oh
and
wow,
talking to
that's
him about
incredible.
he manages to get that to get that far. So you should listen to it. It's incredible.
I'm gonna check it out. Yeah. So I went down your list of things you have been on, and I saw Gandhi as well. And you know, amongst others. I mean, you've done a lot of work, but so I mean, I'm assuming you auditioned for that too, and you know, you got
So
a
that's not the famous Gandhi, with the Ben Kingsley one. That's a little
okay.
film called Gandhi, My Father.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I auditioned for that. It was supposed to shoot in South Africa. I got the role of Henry Pollock. It's a real guy who was an artist and a friend of Gandhi's when he was in South Africa, because Gandhi spent some time living here.
Right.
Um, and the whole thing was supposed to shoot here, but something happened. And again, it's this, you get a call and says, "Hey, by the way, next Tuesday you have to go to India for, 2 months." I'm like,
Sure.
"What?
Let me just pack my shit and go. Yeah.
Yeah, I didn't know that that was part of the thing. No, it's changed. Something happened to the location, so they're shooting the South Africa stuff there now, and it'll be fine." It wasn't fine. I did not enjoy that experience. I came pretty close to a mental breakdown. I think India and
I
me, we
would
didn't
too.
get on. But yeah, so I went to India for 5 or 6 weeks and shot that there, which was an incredible. I've been very lucky. I've had incredible experiences.
Yeah, I saw I didn't watch this, but I remember like the buzz of Generation Kill,
Yeah.
and when I saw that you were credited on that as well. How was that experience? Because like I used to work at a video store, and I remember like always seeing that there, and I was like, oh, I don't know why I don't check this out yet, but it just never did. But so
Yeah, yeah,
how
yeah.
was it on there?
Everything you're asking about has a weird story. Maybe every job is weird.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I had sort of binged watched The Wire
Okay.
before that. I worked at a video store for years and years as well, and I'd always seen The Wire sitting on the shelves and never really known what it was. And one day I just popped the first disc off and took it home with me one night, and that was it. I sort of binged watched The Wire. Amazing. Obviously, you don't need me to tell you it's an amazing TV show, and that was made by Ed Burns and David Simon. And I was getting married. Um, I met my wife in sort of 2005, 2006,
Hmm.
and we got engaged very quickly. And um, so we only dated for about 4 months before I proposed to her, and she accepted. But then we decided, we haven't had a very long relationship, so we'll have a relatively long engagement. We'll get married in a year after that.
Hmm.
And in that year, at some point in there, I decided this is bullshit. I need to grow up. I'm going to get married. I'm going to have a family. I need to, earn a living and stop this silliness. And my career hadn't done what we all dreamt would happen to our career. So I left the industry. I told my agent I'm out. So I went and got a job at an events company. It was going great. But my agent kept phoning me. She wouldn't stop phoning me. "Hey, there's an audition. I know you're out." But I thought, and I kept like going, "No, I'm out. Stop phoning me. Leave me alone." But she kept doing it. And eventually she phoned me one day and said, "This is the perfect job for you. Generation Kill, Ed Burns, David Simon, about the army." Because I've always been a bit, I was never in the army, but I was always very martial artsy and weapons and all that stupid shit.
Hmm.
Um, and I was like, "No, leave me alone." But I couldn't get that one out of my mind.
Hmm.
And it gnawed away at me. And eventually I quit the job. And I phoned my agent and I said, "Look, it's been a while, but is that audition still going?" She said, "No, they're in callbacks already, but let me see what I can do." And she phoned actually the same casting director, Krista
Oh well.
Schamberger, who did the Ali movie. And Krista said, "We're in callbacks, but let Daniel can come and be my reader in the room, meet the international casting director, Alexa Fogel, and he can read for all the auditions," which I did, which was a really incredible experience getting to work with Alexa and seeing how, how a top tier American casting director works,
Hmm.
and the differences and the similarities, and just what she was looking for. It was really cool, and we got on really well. And right at the end, she said, "Okay, let's put you on tape and see if we can get something going." And she did. And yeah, I got a relatively small role. I was only in episode one, but I got to do. I think they did a 2-week boot camp in Namibia. The real Force Recon Marines came out and ran a boot camp for the sort of core cast of, it was big, about 38 actors, young American and South African actors who would play this American company of First Recon Marines. So I got to do the boot camp and meet those people, and it was incredible. And that's ultimately what this casting agent Krista won her Emmy for.
Wow.
Alexa Fogel and her won a sort of a joint casting Emmy. And it was an incredible experience meeting David Simon and Ed Burns and Alexander Skarsgård. A very young Alexander Skarsgård was the lead in that. And other really, Michael Kelly was in that, and a lot of people you'd recognize today were in that, and it was an amazing, amazing experience. Yeah,
I mean, just like being on a Ed Burns production, that's already insane. Like he's done like incredible
yeah,
things. So,
no,
um,
100%. It was real. It was a real life treat, um, but a bit of pill as well, right? Because you always, on that production, I remember that. So the bit that I shot, so the production shot in Namibia, in a little town called Swakopmund, and in Mozambique, out of Maputo, the same city I was in for Ali, and then out of South Africa. Those are the three big location areas. And episode one was only in Mozambique, so I went only in Namibia. So I went up to Namibia, did the boot camp, and then shot for about a month or so.
mm,
And I remember like the South Africans were getting like, I don't know, 100, I can't remember the exact amount. We are getting like 100 rand a day per diem, right? Today, that's like, I don't know, $4 or $3, whatever it
geez,
was. But in those
not
days,
even
it
lunch.
wasn't, it wasn't too bad in those days. This is also 20 years ago. It wasn't too bad in those days until we found out that the American actors were getting 500 rand per diem per day.
Or, yeah.
Um, And, I phoned up the South African producer and I was like, "Hey, I just wanted to chat to you about it. It feels really unfair to me." And, he gave me the South African producer spiel, which is that, the Americans work under SAG contracts and we don't. And one of the reasons productions come here is because they can blah, say whatever. Um, but when you work on international stuff, it's always it's a two-sided coin. On one hand, you get to see what the job is supposed to be,
Mm.
when there's money and when there's experience and when there's expertise behind it. But at the same time, you get treated like a bit of a second-class citizen in some ways. Um, and that's not to say that in South Africa we don't have expertise and we don't have passion and we don't have amazing, amazing people. We do. I think that's one of the big reasons why productions come and work here. Um, but at the end of the day, it's just so much comes down to money, right? Like
Yeah,
so much comes down to money, and
always.
what are the first things that a production starts to shave out of a budget if they need to save money or if they don't have enough money. um, but yes, Generation Kill was incredible.
I would hope so. I want to go back because you mentioned that you worked at a video store for some time.
Yeah,
Um, and it's such a that was such a crazy experience for me because I did that for only like I think 2 or 3 years maybe. And I was a manager or a shift lead, I guess you can call. For most of that time, I got promoted very quickly because They're like, oh, this guy actually works. Let's let's give him $1 raise and that's it. You know, kind of thing.
I worked at quite a high-end video store. I mean, I'm
Okay.
pretty confident in saying that Video Spot Craig Hall was the best video store in Johannesburg. And we're a big city, and it was known as sort of the best video store in the
Hmm.
city. It was a big store. We'd have eight, nine, 10 people on shift at any one
Oh
time.
wow, lucky.
It was really big, and it was a perfect job for me. I got to take 10 videos and then DVDs home every night and just sort of binge watch stuff. Um, and it was an easy job, and yeah, but you certainly saw the characters. I mean, I remember that there were guys who came in every day to take out two videos
Mm.
every single like their night. And I shouldn't talk because I'm probably the same age now that they were then, and I spend my nights watching TV most nights. I just don't have to go to the video store to do it. Um, but because there was relatively small amounts of content in those days,
Yeah,
they they had to watch just fucking crud.
yeah,
Like, I mean, when a new movie would come out, they'd get it and they'd watch it. And, every week or every month, whatever, there'd be a couple of big blockbusters that came out and stuff that they
yeah,
would watch. If they were new to the video store, we would recommend all of the sort of indie stuff that we loved, Red Rock West and the Duelists and all sorts of amazing movies that a lot of people didn't know about. Um, but pretty quickly, now you're handing them like Sharknado 12 and
yeah,
you know Bikini Murders 19. Now we're in Malibu and all that shit.
yeah,
And they would take it. That's I kind of thought it's a little bit sad. Like, what if my life is like that when I'm that age that I'm just watching shit TV? Luckily today there's so much good TV and film that
yeah,
you can spend the same amount of time watching quality. But my life probably isn't any less sad than theirs was. Um, yeah, and the normal, we had a very, very small porn section. It wasn't out, but we had it
right.
in like a box in the back, and a couple of guys knew about it. And there was they'd say, "I'd like to look at the book," and they'd sort of give you a funny look because we had
Yeah,
like a flip file with all the video covers in, and we go, "Okay, no, no, no problem, come back," and we take them back. And then that take ages flipping through these things. And now if you want to watch porn now, you just go online. It's a very private, it can be a very private experience.
yeah.
But just the idea in those days of all these kids running around, getting videos, shelving videos, rewinding videos, and they're sort of just sitting there like flipping through the book of porn covers. Um, that was funny. But yeah, it was a great time. It was a great time. Got to do well, got to be surrounded by what I loved.
Yeah, I worked at a second tier. We were, number two basically of like the big because obviously Blockbuster was number one in our country. And then we were at second tier, underneath that. Um, but my second, so like my war story is my first day. I was working, I think like right before the holidays, before Christmas, and I didn't know how to work anything. Like the system they had there for, checking people in, renting stuff out was just awful. It was just you had to most of the commands were on the F keys, and
Yeah,
I've never used F keys like before that. And then so I was like the runner. I was just getting, checking the movies in, making sure the
yeah,
discs weren't broken, and then running them out. But we were so slammed, and there was only one person there besides me. Um, she's like, "Okay, go on this one, and start checking people out." I'm like, "How the fuck do I do that?" And I had to learn as I was going. So I was messing up every transaction, and she was just getting so mad at me. I was like, "Well, nobody fucking trained me for,
yeah,
So I spent like 2 hours straight just like getting yelled at by my at the time manager, and I was like, "Sorry, not sorry. You're the one that threw me on on the register. Like that's not my problem. That's your problem." You know,
the
that
first
was
taste
another awful thing.
of
And then the one
greatness.
time I was scheduled. This was like the year after, or maybe 2 years. I was trying to get out of Christmas because I have a family too. My son was only like three or four at the time or something like that. And and I was trying to get that day off because they scheduled me and I've worked I've never called out like I was there all the time, and uh I was just trying to get out of it. And I actually got sick on that day, like or it might have been New Year's. It was one of those weird holidays. Uh I was there and all of a sudden I don't know if it was the nerves or if it was like stress or something, but I actually got very sick in the middle of the transaction. I look at the customer, I'm like, hold on, I gotta throw up. And like ran away. I ran to the bathroom. I like stormed in, did the thing, and like laid on the floor for like 30 minutes because I was just so like I was so ill. And the store manager was so pissed at me. She was like, what the fuck are you doing in there? It's like I'm dying. I don't know. You know,
Yeah, I'm dying in here is what I'm doing.
you know. She's like, just go home. And I was like, and then I actually felt bad because I'm leaving her, hang up to dry, but I was legit sick. I couldn't,
Sure,
and I didn't even know how I got home, like, because at the time I didn't drive. I had a, bike ride. Was the bike ride was only 5 minutes, from where I lived, but walking was just like a 25, 30 minute, and
sure.
I was just so like just hunched over, just awful. Don't miss those days.
Yeah, sure.
And now let's go back to back to the acting stuff. So I saw Tremors 5. Were you a fan of Tremors before that?
Of the original, yes. I don't think you can work. I don't think you could have worked in a video shop in the 90s and early 2000s without being a fan of Tremors. The original movies, I think it's a cult classic. It's
Yeah.
amazing. I was not at that stage aware of the fact that it had sort of franchised, sort of
Hmm.
low budget franchised. And this was Tremors, yeah, Tremors 5, Tremors Bloodlines that we did. Um, and so when I heard about it, I sort of did some research and who's still in it. I'm pretty sure it's not Kevin Bacon anymore, but which of the original cast was still in it, and sort of found out that it sort of had coalesced around Burt Gummer, Michael Gross's character, um, and obviously knew Michael Gross, Family Ties, and the Tremors and that sort of stuff. So that was cool to work on. Um, Working with closely with Michael Gross and Jamie Kennedy, and a weird director, American guy, um, and he was sort of because this is low budget stuff, not low
Yeah.
budget by South African standards, but low budget by American standards. Um, and this guy had been brought in because his speciality was sort of shooting these kind of monster horror action movies really fast and getting good stuff.
Okay.
He'd shoot sort of two or three cameras, which is quite unusual. Um, and he'd managed, doing it that way to get, good quality stuff quite quickly. Um, but he didn't quite gel with the South African crew, and he was quite a sort of hierarchical, top-down kind of
Hmm.
manager guy. And so the we ran into some problems, and eventually somebody from Universal, I think it was a Universal property, and so somebody from Universal flew out, and kind of the stories we heard, because your actors and your makeup truck are always very close. We spend a lot of
Okay.
time together. First people we'll see in the morning, last people we'll see in the evening are the makeup team. And the makeup team somehow always have all the gossip. If you want to know what's going on in a set, you speak to the makeup team. Um, and so we were getting sort of the lowdown on it. And apparently this guy walked in and he walked straight into a production meeting and he said, right, who do I have to fire? And
Is
after that, the team sort of tightened up quite a lot, and we finished shooting. But it was great. I mean, sort of monster horror comedy. How much more fun can you get
Yeah.
to shoot that? It was awesome.
Now I know where to get the tea.
Yeah,
And so, I mean, you did a lot of stuff like kind of in between there, and so I was going on to I went to go look at all your films on like from what it was accessible to me, and
yeah,
so I watched Lord Jones is Dead,
Oh wow, you
What?
found that. I love that movie.
Yeah, I was so like into it. Um, and so how was that filming? Because that's all dialogue. It's just like you guys on the curb, you know,
Yeah,
for the most
it's
part.
three actors, three characters, basically. It's sort of like a Waiting for Good, like a film version of Waiting for Godot. It's these three journalists who just sit around waiting to get an interview or a sound bite from somebody who's hiding in a house. So they're just sitting on
Yeah.
the curb outside all day, just waiting and hoping. One photographer, two journalists. And that, yeah, another weird story. I'm not big on social media. I have social media accounts, but I don't use them a lot. I use
Yeah.
Facebook because I shop on Facebook Marketplace sometimes, but that's about it. But yeah, I was a bit more active in those days, and I got a message on Facebook saying, "Hey, my name is Megan, and I'm casting this film called All Judge is Dead, and we're very interested in looking at you for a part." And, my first reaction was, "Yeah, if you're casting a film and you're so interested in me, get a casting director, send out an audition brief. Like, this is not how things are done on Facebook." But uh, I'm game. I'm not going to say no, so I'll go down the rabbit hole a little bit. And I did, and I went to an audition, and it was a sort of a real thing. Two amazing, writer, director, producers out of Canada.
Mm.
Great guys, Austin Andrew and Andrew. So they had come out. They brought a Canadian actor with them to play one of the roles, amazing guy called Chad Krochuk. Um, and they auditioned, I got the role, it was amazing. And yeah, it's just a full on 90 minutes of dialogue. And we rehearsed it for about 2 days, and then
Okay.
we shot it in 4 days.
Wow.
It was really, really quick, but an amazing, amazing experience. The writer directors were just, so clear on what they wanted.
Yeah.
They hired, it was the first time I ever worked with a South African DOP called Trevor Calverley. And Trevor is just, man, I mean, there's note that I deserve to be rich and famous and very, very successful, but Trevor really deserves to be rich and famous and very, very successful. He
Mm.
is very few and far between, not only technically, but Trevor really gets into the story and he makes sure that he's involved in the storytelling process, which is absolutely what a director photography should be doing. So, I mean, I'm sure you noticed it's shot really beautifully, and every single
Yeah.
scene is like a picture. So just being part of that process and uh, yeah, just it's a dream come true, right? Just getting to do a dialogue-driven, character-driven piece that is just about the performance and the story,
Yeah.
and it's a brilliantly written piece based on a play, um, and yeah, it was a great experience.
Yeah, you guys had like great chemistry. I mean, everything was just so like felt perfect, like you were just really there and just trying
Yeah,
to get
the,
the
the
job
stars
done.
aligned. Stars,
Yeah.
but I mean, again, it's like everything is bittersweet. I tried not, well, that's not true. I'm a very negative, judgmental, fucking grumpy person. But yeah, the money was shit, and we shot it in 4 days, and we should have shot it in 4 weeks. And so you're constantly trading things off, right? And it came
Yeah.
out beautifully. Don't get me wrong. I'm super proud of that product. It holds its own against any independent movie. It's brilliant, brilliantly shot, brilliantly edited, brilliantly performed, brilliantly directed. It's a great piece. But I just find myself thinking, like, what could it have been if we shot it over 4 weeks
Yeah.
than 4 days? And maybe that was part of what made it great, the immediacy, the urgency, the sort of time pressure. Um, but working in South Africa and probably everywhere, you're constantly playing this trade-off, right? Like this is an amazing experience, and I love what I do, and it's a great privilege to be an actor, but it's supposed to be better than this, and it's tough.
Yeah. If you would have told me you shot that in 4 days, I'd be like, get the fuck out of here. I wouldn't have believed you. Until you just told me, obviously.
It is 8 days, I
Well,
think.
that's still
Maybe
very
we rehearsed for four and shot for eight.
okay.
Could have been 8 days. Maybe I'm
Yeah, but
wrong.
that's
But even
still
8 days.
yeah, that's still like insane to me that you guys went through all that dialogue and just over a week. That's just incredible for one, but two, it's like, are you out of your fucking mind? But and then I saw Alien Invasion. I know you were only the roommate,
Yeah,
but it was such a funny character to me. Um, you just being like the worst roommate. You and your partner in the scenes were just the worst roommates ever. It was like this is good. This is some good shit right here. It made me laugh the entire. I was like, oh, I can't wait till it gets on screening. It's good. I enjoyed that movie in general. Like it was just a fun movie, and then your parts were just extra comedy on top of that. And I was like, oh, I wanted to see more, but it's not a part of the main story. So
yeah. I mean, also, it's great to be able to play that kind of character where, I mean, I'll never forget the scene where they're in cosplay and he's
yeah,
wearing like a Zorro mask, and then he takes the Zorro mask off and he's actually put the black makeup under the Zorro mask of a Zorro mask. So just, that kind of really ridiculous kind of, take this character to the nth degree and then keep going a little bit.
yeah.
So much fun to be given sort of free reign like that with a character. Um, and it was a ball. Again, super duper low budget, made for Netflix, but it is what's known as a Netflix local production. So
Mm,
if you knew what the budgets on local productions were, again, you'd fall off your chair. Um, and it was just a lot of fun, yeah. And working with Claudine Ullman, who's a local stand-up comedian.
mm,
Actually, hadn't and hasn't done a lot of acting, but she was just incredible as the sort of girlfriend roommate. Um,
yeah.
with fun.
Um, yeah. I mean, who cares? Like sometimes, like budget. You do what you can to the best with what you have, and a lot of times it pays off. You know.
Yeah,
Um, And then I watched obviously because Takeout, but even before that, Slay. Um,
yeah.
so how did that come about? Because that was such like a fun movie for me. It was just so I loved pretty much everything about it. It was just funny. It was plenty of action. You had great characters. It seemed like you all had like really great chemistry together, and the set seemed very fun. Like how was your role in that? I mean, did you audition for that or you
Yeah,
just
so
get called
those are the
in?
last two. Just trying to think. Slay was 2023. Takeout was earlier this year. I think those are the last two films that I did. They're both commissioned by Tubi. We don't
Yeah.
have Tubi in South Africa, so we had to sort of find out who Tubi was, but obviously the largest free streaming service in the world. And they're sort of starting to get into their own sort of low budget original content. And Jem Gerard, who is one of the most incredible human beings that I've ever met and ever worked with. Jem is like incredible. I mean, I've worked with incredible famous people, and I've worked with famous not incredible people, and I've worked with incredible not famous people, but
Yeah.
Jem for me is at the top there. Their vision, um, the attention to detail, their big picture compared, but their ability to also stay like in the performance and in the text and in the minutiae of things is just. I love working for Jem. I'll work for Jem. I left the set of Slay and I said to them, anytime, anywhere you call, I'll come running.
Mm.
But yeah, so Tubi partnered with a production company called Blue Ice, which is started in South Africa, but is now sort of run in South Africa, Canada. Um, and Tubi and Blue Ice brought a whole slate of Tubi low budget sort of action, horror, suspense, monster horror kind of things
Yeah.
to shoot here. And Jem has now directed three or four or five of them, but there were other people directing things as well. Slay is drag queens versus vampires. What better combination could you possibly get for a monster horror action comedy? And they brought in four amazing and really famous sort of drag queens. I think each of them had been on RuPaul's Drag Race, had won their seasons
Oh,
of
okay.
RuPaul Drag Race. Plus Trinity the Tuck is sort of a really established, famous, slightly older generation queen. So they all came out, and then Jem put together this amazing local South African cast and crew. Brought one other actor out from Canada, Danya who was also just amazing. And the chemistry on set was electric. Trevor Calverley actually shot that, and brought his again, that's that sense of deep commitment to storytelling, along with a very robust technical set of skills. He shoots very beautiful pictures, but he always makes sure that those pictures are telling a story. And him and Jem um, just worked beautifully together, and it was, yeah. I mean, also we made Slay in 4 weeks. We made Takeout in
Wow.
4 weeks. So very low budget productions, but brilliant scripts.
Yeah.
Jem's writing is, it's tight, it's clever, it's funny, it
Hmm.
flows. Um, both of those movies are sort of set in real time. Um, so it's not like a big, huge story, with a small budget. I think Jem's kind of figured out that same way Austin and Andrew did on Lord Jones is Dead. You got to keep it simple.
Yeah.
Single location, 90% interior location, no big costume changes, no big, although of course Slay with drag queens has a lot of
Yeah.
significant costume changes. But the simpler you keep your idea and the simpler you keep your production design and all that sort of stuff, the further you can push that small budget. And Jem does that brilliantly in both of those films.
Were you intrigued about playing a biker? Because you were just like,
No, because people often ask me like, "What's your dream role?" Or like, "If you could play anyone, what would you play?" And I never really have an answer.
okay.
Every role is fun.
Yeah.
Bikers, a little bit more out there than sort of the lawyer or the doctor or the whatever that is. Um, but and Gem and those productions are also, a situation where you can really sink your teeth in. Like they're already slightly heightened in terms of their style. So you can lean into that. And Travis, the biker that I played, you know, he's got a seriously deep sort of Southern Texan kind of accent. And I could just lean as far into that and as far into the jokes and as far into the comedy, and Jim would pull me back when they needed to. But um, we were just really given free range to play with
Okay.
those characters, try and make them fun. So the biker part of it was great, and I think he's a great character. He has a little bit of a redemption arc. He starts off um, like a bit of an asshole, and he's still an asshole, but he's sort of a lovable asshole at the end,
Yeah. He,
uh,
he
which
slips
which
them
was
a little bit. Yeah.
yeah, which was great to play. Um, and Takeout, similar. There's not as much comedy in Takeout,
No.
but there's still, Jem's comedy is still in there, and I think it's actually a much funnier movie than it pretends to be.
Yeah.
Um, and as well, there I get to play. Um, uh, are we allowed to give away spoilers? I never know how these things work.
Well,
Um,
real quick before we jump into that takeout,
yeah,
so like when you're reading the script on Slay, we're like the scene where the queens are dancing the first time, where you're like, did you even have you heard of WAP before that? Could be in.
Yeah, I mean,
Oh,
I've heard it. I'm not a very big musical person,
okay.
so it didn't really key for me until I was on set and they were actually playing it on set.
Yeah,
Um, the reference, yeah, it didn't trigger when I was reading the script, but just watching them shoot it on set is just, I mean,
I don't
perfect.
know if I can hold my shit together. Was just yeah. Anyway, I just thought that was so incredibly. It was just
There are a
so
lot of
good and
times and a
funny.
lot of actors on that show where it was hard for us to keep our shit together.
Yeah. Um. Yeah. So now to take out obviously a more serious tone. There are comedic parts in it. I mean, there's there's definitely some undertones of, dark humor and stuff like that, which I definitely enjoyed. That's the kind of shtick that I usually go for anyway, you know. I mean, I do love comedies and I do love horror, but sometimes I like that dark comedy that's sort of brewing underneath it, and there was some of that in there too. Um, and did you enjoy playing the kind of character that you ended up being in that movie?
In Slay, yeah, absolutely. Um, Slay on the surface, it's just a sort of fun romp,
Yeah,
comedy horror. But underneath, I think you're right. There is a more serious side to it. It deals with, a lot of sort of transphobia and
right.
things that we're dealing with a lot in the world, and those sort of issues I think are very important to Gem. And we had to make sure that that sort of stuff was that the serious heart of that movie was taken seriously. Um, we never got mired down in it or anything like that, but absolutely, there's a number of storylines in that film where people find the courage to sort of express things that they had never really been able to express, and
Yeah.
obviously, it's you can accept drag queens, you can accept gay people, you can accept trans people, but we sort of drew the lines at vampires, which seemed to make sense at the time. But yeah, that storyline of sort of a queer group of people going into a very sort of right-wing redneck
Yeah,
part of America, and what happens after that, I think is a great vehicle for that message. And I think it's a great idea to try and tell those stories without having to make big serious movie. In some ways, I think the message is easier to get, well, not easier to get across. I think you can get it across better while
yeah,
people are laughing, having fun. It's a problem we had in South Africa for ages. After democracy came to South Africa, we'd been so used to struggle theatre and telling struggle stories that we were sort of mired down in this very serious, very sort of political way of storytelling, and sort of getting out of that was very challenging. And hopefully, we'll get it right at some point. But I think Jem just hits the nail on the head. Those issues are very, very important to them, and they bring them to their work, but they make sure that people are absorbing those messages while having fun, which I think is
right.
genius.
I thought it was done very, 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 very well.
Yeah.
I enjoyed that all the way through. Um, so like again with Takeout though, like with that character, that your arc in that story, did you enjoy that process? Because I mean, you start off, you know, a very standard sort of character, but then you transform uh at some point in that film, which I'm trying not to ruin it for people, but your character uh takes on a different role at some point. And did you like that process because it's such a different it goes from one way to another very fast.
Yeah, sure. I love that process. I mean, look, in the film, it's not a whodunit all the way to the end.
Yeah.
Jem does reveal sort of the kicker quite early on, so we can get on with the film. So I don't think we're giving too much away.
Yeah.
Um, but yeah, to play a psycho killer who starts off as a sort of mild-mannered high school teacher
Yeah.
was great. It was so much fun. And there's a lot of sort of nuance and challenge in the nuance. You don't want to give anything away, but at the same time, you don't want to be playing so sickly sweet at the beginning that it isn't believable, or that, if you play too innocent and sweet, everyone's like, oh, that's the killer. So, finding that middle ground was challenging and was fun. Um, and then once you sort of figure out who he is, again, what a privilege to just be able to play an unbridled psycho. Um, it was great. It was great fun.
Yeah.
And the cast on that, like, I mean, I've been a South African actor for my first professional production was 1997. So however long that's been, 22, 23, I don't know, over 20 years, and working on stuff with people that I'd never met and never heard of before. A lot of young actors. I'm in Johannesburg. Those productions happened in Cape Town.
Mm.
So I never met a lot of those young actors, and they just like blew me away. Incredible, incredible craft, incredible skill, smart, smart people. I think one of the things Jem does really, really well um, is she teams up with smart people. I
Yeah.
don't know how they do it because in an audition tape or in a callback, I don't know how you get that, but Jem, consciously or unconsciously, she works with a lot of really smart people.
Yeah, you always hope that you get smart people, but obviously people that you actually want to be on set with as well, right? That's the
On
hope, at
Jem's
least.
productions, on those Tubi productions, I've only ever had fun.
That's
The
great.
people that they put together, it's just, yeah, people who love to have fun, who know that what they're doing. There's always a sense on a movie set that what you're doing is the most important thing in the world. Um,
Yeah.
and I think storytelling, making movies, making films, making TV, doing theater, I think it is really, really important. Um, but I also think it's important to also keep in mind that you're just making a movie and just making TV. And if you can find the balance between that, I mean, I think that, being an actor and making films and TV is the closest that we have to magic in the world. Like literally,
Yeah.
we make something out of nothing. And I think that's magical. And when you're on set with good people and you're telling a good story, it's transcendent. It's incredible. Um, and I think it can sometimes lead people to think that what they are doing is the most important thing in the world, and that can be, harmful. And the people on this film really sort of had that balance right. I think it comes from Jem, who takes the work really, really seriously, but keeps a really playful, really fun set, which means that you can sort of get. I'll often say to people, like, we're not making Schindler's List. Um, and that for me is the analogy of like Schindler's List. Yeah, you're doing something really important.
Yeah.
Schindler's List versus Slay, the Holocaust versus drag queens versus vampires. I think they're both important, and they're both the things to teach us, but the one is a bit more serious than the other.
Yeah. I don't know. The way I've always seen it is like I mean, with entertainment, right? Is like the job is not only to tell a story to say a message in a different profound way, but like obviously you're actually um and not even always seriously, but you're always trying to like change someone's day in a way, right? To where like hopefully they leave better, within an hour, 2 hours of watching whatever you just did, leaving better, happier,
I mean,
thinking,
I suppose my goal is changed, right? Like
right, changed, yeah,
theoretically, and obviously you can't, you sit through an episode of CSI Miami, you're probably not that different at the end of the episode to the beginning of the episode.
yeah,
But I think the goal is if the audience member can leave changed at the end of a story, then I think it's you've done your job.
exactly. Um, and then I was starting to watch White Lies,
Yeah.
because I know you did a big part in that,
Yeah.
and I'm assuming that was audition as well, and you're just kind of, or were you called into that,
No, I mean, my career and my place in the industry here is I'm auditioning for pretty much everything I do.
everything?
Um, yeah, I mean, even Takeout, I'd made Slay with Jim a year and a half before, and it's a weird thing between Cape Town and Johannesburg here. Like some Cape Town productions won't see Joburg actors. It's a whole other political thing, which is completely irrelevant. Um, but I managed to get an audition for it, and I spoke to Jim personally because we've stayed in touch. And they were like, "Yeah, get yourself on tape so I can show it to some people over here." But I still had to put an audition down for it.
Yeah,
Um, so yeah, White Lies I auditioned for out of nowhere. Audition came, did an audition for a different role to the one that I ended up getting. Got really amazing, like almost immediate feedback on that audition that they really liked it. They wanted me to audition for this, slightly bigger role, which I did, and I got that. And also a really important experience in my life. Working with somebody like Natalie Dormer, so closely with someone like Natalie Dormer was amazing. Was a huge eye opener for me. getting to sort of watch somebody work who's worked on, Game of Thrones, like the biggest things in the world,
Yeah.
and see how she brought that experience and that skill level to, again, what is theoretically and relatively speaking a fairly small production. But for South Africa, I think it is one of the most expensive productions we've ever done. So
Wow.
again, we got to. I felt like we were treated much closer to the way that I would hope actors are treated on a set, than we're used to. Great directing team, led by John Chengrove. The producers were amazing and super involved and always there. And Natalie was great, and beautiful scripts, beautiful
Yeah.
concepts, by Sean Steinberg, and scripts by Daryl Bristol Bovey. So yeah, everything sort of came together. And the show, I think we have a bit of a glass ceiling in South Africa. Um, if you're making, if you're shooting 17, 18, 19, 20 pages a day, then it can only ever be so good,
Right.
right? So on local South African productions, which are so low budget that I shot 25 scenes one day on a low budget thing. But 14 to 17 pages is pretty standard here for local drama. In America, I think that number is probably closer to 3 to 4 pages a day. Um, so if you're having to shoot that quickly, it's only you're going to hit that glass ceiling. It's only ever going to be so good.
Right.
It can never sort of, it doesn't matter who's involved, doesn't matter what the script is, doesn't matter how good the director is. If you're shooting at that speed, it can only ever be so good.
Yeah.
And on White Lies, we didn't have to shoot at that pace. We didn't have to shoot at that crazy sort of low budget rate. We were aiming for sort of 3 to 4 pages, sort of most days landing on maybe 7, 8 pages a day. And so we could do some really, really good work. And I think it's not a perfect show, but I think it's a good show. I'm proud of it. It was great to work on.
Yeah, I got to again, I started it I didn't get very far, but I was very into it already. I just, ran out of time, but
Yeah.
um yeah, I am definitely gonna keep watching it because I'm like, okay, good story, you guys are all casted great in it, so I'm very into it.
That's the dream for South Africa, right? Telling South African stories, but being able to bring some high profile people in because that can bring in some money as well.
Yeah.
I think South Africa is an amazing country and we have incredible talent here to tell the stories and incredible stories to tell. Um, but if we're just left to our own devices, there's not enough money. And to be honest, I mean, our technical crews are world class. If you go down to Cape Town, you've got you've got technical crews that have worked on Mission Impossible, that have worked on, shot the whole of Black Sails, shot the whole of One Piece, busy shooting One Piece season 3 now, which is wrapped on season
Mm.
2 or 3 now. Um, Guys who've worked on Ali, guys who've worked on Mad Max. Thunder Road was the whole thing was shot in Namibia, but all crewed out of South Africa, stunt teams as well. And it'll often happen that the production will start international and come to South Africa to shoot a bit here. And then when it goes on to sort of shoot more of the international stuff, it'll almost always take a couple of South Africans with them, a camera
Right.
operator, a stunt coordinator, whatever it is, because our guys are incredible, incredible, incredible. But having said that, like I think we need to start working with some international showrunners and some international line producers, and you know our local people are used to that glass ceiling, so even when
Right.
they're given the money to sort of get through that glass ceiling, it's difficult. That sort of penny pinching mentality. I mean, friends of mine to producing a brother producing team just did a great production with a Canadian producer, I think. And the
Mm.
Canadian producer came in and found one of the producers, and the producer was like freaking out and trying to figure out, like, what do I do? I need this service provider, but this costs this much and that costs that much, and I don't know which one to do, and I think this one's better. But and the Canadian guy was like, "What the fuck are you doing? Just just hire the best person." like, who's the best person? And the guy was like, oh, no, it's this guy. And he's like, just fucking hire them. Like, what do you? They're like, no, well, that guy's like almost twice as expensive as this guy. And the guy was like, just get the best person. Stop even worrying about it. Like, we'll figure it out.
Yeah.
Um, and so that's the sort of mentality we have, right? Because we have such low budgets. And I keep coming back to budgets, and I wish I didn't have to, but
Where's the
it
reality thing?
sits at the
Yeah.
heart of your ability to tell a good story. You
Yeah.
need time, you need luxury, and you need the luxury of time to be able to do it. Um, so I think maybe an international showrunner or two to come down, and we can sort of learn from them that sort of top end stuff.
So are you a horror fan? I mean, or are you just a fan of film in general?
Um, I'll be honest with you, horror is actually one of my least favorite
Wow, okay.
genres. As a small kid, I was, I don't know what the word is, I was quite a sensitive kid. And horror movies used to just scare the shit out of me. I couldn't sleep. I'd be in tears. I'd have to go sleep in my mom and dad's bed. Like I couldn't handle horrors. Um, I mean, I remember after Silence of the Lambs, and I wasn't even that young then. I was probably in my early teens or just before my early teens. And like I was terrified of the world coming out of that movie. Like, I guess I find films really transportative, right? Like I can really fall into the world of a film.
Yeah.
Um, Many times it's like I'm experiencing that as opposed to just watching it. And I don't know if that's it or not, but yeah, horror films scared the shit out of me.
Well,
And so I sort
Silence
of
of the
avoided
Lambs though. Silence of the Lambs though is like something that could actually happen. Like a person could actually, get to you and kill you, and eat
Yeah,
you.
yeah, yeah, yeah.
Like
Yeah, I mean,
so
Silence
that's
of the Lambs
that's something
is
real.
not a horror movie, but it's a
No.
terrifying movie.
Yeah.
And in some ways, you're right. I think it's probably more terrifying than Eraserhead 9 or whatever it is. Um, but yeah, I sort of avoided them for a long time, and by the time I sort of got old enough that I could watch them without freaking out, um, they'd sort of passed me by. So I watched some. Um, I haven't seen like the canon pieces. Like I never saw Nightmare on Elm Street. I never saw Friday the 13th. I don't know if I saw the original It. I think I probably did.
Tim
Um,
Curry, yeah.
yeah, I might not have. Um, I'm not well schooled in horror.
You know what's funny is Jamie Lee Curtis doesn't like horror films either, but she did Halloween.
Yeah, yeah,
You know.
yeah. She's one of the queens because of that whole series.
And so to wrap this up, like what do you like to do on your downtime? Like when you're not auditioning, when you're not acting, when you're not doing something important, like what is it the thing that you like to do the most?
Um, I guess I'm a maker. I like to make things with my hands. I have a
I
little
saw that,
workshop here
yeah.
at home, and I find things to make. I copy things. I say, "Oh, that looks cool. I'm sure I can make that." And then I spend a few months figuring out that it's actually much harder than I thought it was, and try and give up 900 times, and then eventually sort of find a way to solve all the problems and get stuff made. So yeah, so a bit of art, a bit of making, designing stuff. Um, that's sort of what I most love to do when I'm not on set. And in some ways, it's the same thing. Just the act
Yeah.
of creation, I think, is what I'm here to do.
Have you ever had inspirations of writing and directing? Writing or directing?
Uh, yes and no. I would be I would be so intensely and unbelievably happy if I could just spend the rest of my life just going from one job to the other acting.
Yeah.
It's the perfect thing for me. It's what I love the most. Having said that, friend of mine, we spent 5 years writing a 10-part limited series, which I really love and I think is amazing. And, we've sort of shopped it around and, like anything, maybe it'll sell one day, but that was many years ago. So it sort of sits on a shelf.
Yeah.
Um, I've directed some short films and stuff. I love it. I think it's good. I think I have a bit of an eye. I think I have some eye for the skill of it. And I could do it very happily. Um, and as an actor in South Africa, and obviously as an actor everywhere, you've always got to have your sidelines, your side hustles, um, to make money, to keep yourself busy, all of that sort of stuff. And in South Africa, we're quite privileged. We can usually find a side hustle within the industry. Are we
Right.
working with a casting director? Are we a camera assistant? Are we writing on a soapy, like whatever it is? So yeah, I've dabbled in that stuff and it does interest me. Um, but I'm also a very, very big fan of skill as opposed to talent, right? Like talent is
Right.
one
Right.
thing, a lot of talent. I don't think it's too arrogant to say so. But you need skill to back that up. In South Africa, 90% of our writers are out of work actors who had nothing else to do. And so they end up
Mm.
sitting on a writing team or writing a film and trying to get it produced. But they've never done a writing class, they've never read a writing book. They don't know what it means to take a script to draft 42. You should be shooting draft 42 of a script, not draft three. Most of what we shoot here, because we don't have production budget, is draft three. And draft three was a spell check. And I think it's also because our writers don't sit in that really deep rigor of the skill of that trade. So I would have a lot of work to do, I think, if I ever wanted to get into
Right.
those sort of positions in a more serious role.
Yeah, as a writer myself, I wouldn't say a writer. I've written stuff. But I don't know, that process terrifies me in a way where it's like I don't want my stuff to be changed. But it's like I know it would eventually, but actually real quick before we leave, I saw that you traveled to the States, I'm assuming numerous times. Like going into LA the first time, was that like a culture shock for you, or was it just kind of like, oh, I'm just in another country, you know?
Yeah, I mean, I've traveled internationally my whole life. I've been very privileged to be able to do that
Mm,
with my family and then, with my wife and my own family. Um, so going to LA the first time, it was a bit of a letdown, right? Because
okay.
it's just a city,
Yeah, yeah.
right? Tom Cruise isn't walking down the thing. Denzel Washington isn't sitting at the coffee shop. I mean, they are, but not every day. You're not walking past great, sets every single day. And in some ways, that's a similar city to Johannesburg. It's like a vast city that is really spread out, as opposed to like a New York or Chicago, which is like a
Okay.
really condensed, like small amount of space with tons of people. It's sort of there's land, so there's more space. So in that way, it's quite similar to Johannesburg. So I think that didn't sort of surprise me. And then when we went, we went to some studio tours, and the people we were with would point out studios to me, and that was really shocking because it was like house, 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 Warner Brothers, house, 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 house. I was expecting it to be in a sort of an industrial film centered like hub of the world. And
Right.
actually, just these sort of things dotted around, dotted all over the place. So that was, and I don't say disappointed, it was surprising to me. Um, and, but yeah, I mean, it was just another city. And I've heard so many horror stories from South Africans who've gone there to try and make the jump and be actors there
Hmm.
that I'm quite sure that it is the worst city in the world to try and be an actor.
I don't know. Is it between here and New York? I don't know because I'm in California, so I'm like, I can imagine me going to New York would be just the same, as being like, what the fuck am I doing here? You know, I kind of thing.
Yeah,
But uh, uh, so wrapping it up, I appreciate you coming on. It's been a lovely conversation. I'm hoping to see you do. You will be in a lots of more things. It's just it's gonna happen. Um,
I appreciate it, man. Thank you so much for your time. Thanks for reaching out. And yeah, I hope you're right.
Yeah, oh, you will be. I mean, Slay and Takeout was so fun to watch. I was like, I gotta get this guy on here. I was like, this is some good stuff. Um,
I appreciate it.
so
Thank you so much.
yeah, again, thanks, and again, I'll be seeing you on the screens. You know, you have a luscious career already. So I mean, you've been doing so much for so long. So
I've been
um,
lucky. Yeah, it's been amazing.
and well, what is the evening for you already, or just about to be?
What is it now? Yeah, it's 6:30 in the evening. I've just realized that all of my nice front light has now set. So for the last half of this, you've probably been barely been able to see. Yeah, it's early in the morning for you. Thanks for making the time. I really, really appreciate it, and I hope we can chat again.
Yeah, we'll be keeping in touch, and for those that continue to follow, we are Beyond the Ether podcast. Instagram is Beyond the underscore Ether, and my personal IG account is Cali underscore DTO. And if you want to follow Janks, Daniel.janks online, I'll probably just drop your IG on the page. So um,
You're more than welcome. Maybe once a year or so, I'll go on there and take a
yeah,
picture. But
just pop in
I'm
every now
not
and then.
super
Yeah.
active. Yeah,
Social media is such a it's I don't know
I hate it.
it's
I
tiring.
hate it so much.
Even though I have to because I'm running the channel, but
No, I
it's
know, I
fine.
know. I should too. There's no question.
Yeah, you don't have to. I'm just this whole thing is it. Anyway, I hope you have a great evening. We just finished Halloween here, and that was fun. Did some cool things, but I'll be seeing you on the screens.
I hope so,
We
man.
will all
Thanks so
be.
much for your time.
And for y'all, good night, good evening, good morning, whatever it is.